I entered the Pokemon VGC Grand Challenge 1 online tournament because I've been wanting to get better at competitive Pokemon. I've always had this notion, but with Regulation H being a format that got rid of all the really strong Pokemon, it felt like everything I had wanted to play was aligned. I could use some of my favorite guys that can't keep up with the legendaries in the running, but also having fun knowing that Urshifu doesn't exist, at least for a little while. But I knew going into the Grand Challenge that I would not do well enough to place anywhere meaningful. I knew from testing my team that it had some holes, but I wanted to put myself in a competitive setting to see how I fared when the pressure was on. I'd already been laddering with the team for weeks to get used to it, but a Grand Challenge is much more different than Pokemon Showdown. In lieu of breaking down all 33 matches I did, I want to focus on the things I learned from my team and myself throughout the competition. I'd rather self-reflect than break down in exhaustive detail 33 battles. My final record for the Grand Challenge was 16-17, admittedly a pretty decent score for my first outing. I figured I'd do much worse, but I ended day 1 going 6-9, day 2 going 7-8, and day 3 was 3 straight wins until I quit because I had things to do. For starters, let me break down my team. I was running a team of Archaludon, Pelipper, Primarina, Ursaluna Bloodmoon, Sinistcha, and Hydreigon. I have no real qualms with the first 4 members of this team. They outperformed within what I expected of them. Archaludon clutched up on the final day, basically soloing a match because he was +3 special attack and stamina boosted multiple times against an entirely physical team on the opponent's end. Primarina held their own, taking hits and dishing out damage when needed. Pelipper did well setting the rain and getting rid of all the fighting types that plagued my team. But speaking of fighting types, my team suffered greatly at the hands of them. I knew this was an issue going into the event, but I kept telling myself that the other half of my team, either resisting or being immune to them, would be good enough to mitigate it. This was a dumb assumption. Regulation H has a lot of good fighting type Pokemon that gave me a lot of trouble. Sneasler, Gallade, and Annihilape were the key offenders, the last of which was a particular problem for one of the supposed immunities on my team. Sinistcha is one of my favorite new Pokemon. I have a plush of the guy, but he does not fare as well as I would have hoped in the format. Ghost Grass is a good typing, but not for Regulation H, where Annihilape, Gholdengo, and Basculegion are running wild. Admittedly, I built my Sinistcha more specially defensive, so I didn't get OHKO'd by a Pelipper Hurricane. But in his place came all the physical ghost types that could one-shot Sinistcha with the super effective Rage Fist or Last Respects. I brought Sinistcha to function as my redirection support, but unless it was a Dondozo, he struggled to redirect enough to make it worthwhile. I do also love Amoonguss, so he may be on the team next time since he has a lot more moves that don't have accuracy checks. Because let me tell you something, Machagacha may be a 90% accurate move, but it was missing way more than that. And somehow it still hit more times than Hydreigon did in total. I really like Hydreigon's design, but by the end of the Grand Challenge, he was by far my weakest link. I think he hit maybe 2 Hate Weaves and maybe 3 Draco Meteors in total, despite using them a lot more than that. His fighting weakness also did him no favors because he was often just getting OHKO'd before he could get started. I already had some semblance that he was a weak link, and the day before the Grand Challenge, I made a team without him on Pokemon Showdown, but I figured I'd give him one last chance to redeem himself. And instead, he may be one of the players that will choose a more accurate move, even at the cost of a potential secondary effect. I had already done this with Archaludon because I was missing Draco Meteors left and right, and wanted Archaludon to always have some semblance of damage potential, even if he got burned. I don't think any of Hydreigon's misses ever made me rage, but it was frustrating to keep missing things at key moments when they probably would have mattered. However, to combat this, all of my misses were probably just my luck being sucked into Pelipper, because for some reason it was hitting the confusion proc on like every hurricane it did. All in all, I have alternate routes planned to replace team members for futures events. I think the 4 core members are good and just use some adjustments for their great. I think I'm going to return to good old Amoonguss because he is just so uniquely a nuisance in a way that a team could really use. Hydreigon will probably be replaced by a fighting type, probably either Sneasler or Gallade. I already have one with Gallade, but the time between events I'll give both a shot, see which one I like more. But now with the team out of the way, I can get to the self-reflection of my own playstyle because I realized a lot of my big flaws while fighting on the first day of the Grand Challenge. There were several matches on the first day where I definitely should have been punished harder for using an incorrect move against a gimmick that I already knew how it worked. I switched my Pelipper into a neutralizing gas wheezing and it proceeded to do nothing, which I knew it would do nothing, but my brain just autopiloted. Then I would be using Rage Powder in situations where Pokemon just isn't affected by it. I know how both of those things work, but I still just did a blatantly incorrect move. The only thing I genuinely didn't know was that when neutralizing gas goes away, all the abilities that were stopped proc, which was an issue because I accidentally did that and a Torkoal suddenly had drought and I was very afraid. But on the whole, by far my biggest issue was that I autopilot way too much. I have a move in mind and I just make it without assessing any of the game state and what will help me make meaningful progress in the battle. I'm not afraid of sacking or pivoting thanks to Nuzlocke, but I still try to make a situation work instead of getting one that will benefit me the most. I see things as they could be worse instead of trying to make them better. And I really need to take that extra moment to think, to understand how my team works in its best form and how to get there on every turn instead of just trying to play out the same gameplay each time with different Pokemon. Speaking of evaluating game state, the other thing I need to work on is making reads and targeting correctly. I noticed a lot during my play, I wasn't really trying to make reads. Like I said before, I was playing the game in front of me and not taking the future of the game into account. This isn't to say I'm not making reads at all, but I definitely need to try to be making them more often. I know how to navigate the situation, but I need to consistently spend that extra time to plan ahead. I have been playing competitive Pokemon for about a decade on and off, so I have the fundamental understanding of the game down. However, I really need to start working on taking those fundamentals to the next level and really start integrating them into matches and how they can best improve my gameplay. I also just need to explore the meta and really understand the things that work, because I was caught by surprise many times, some of which was not just because it was best of one closed team sheet where you're getting hit with pledge teams. As a fan of concrete goals, my immediate future plans are to spend more time intentionally laddering and reflecting on my matches. I recorded all of my Grand Challenge matches and intend to break them down and reflect on what went wrong and where in order to improve in the future. I also intend to just watch more content on VGC to really understand the teams that work and the meta and all that fun stuff. The team itself is just going to be an iterative process in the hopes of making it better for the next one. I can see the weaknesses of the team and I'm going to chip away at them and try to make a team that is really good, at least in my opinion. So all in all, while I didn't attain a positive record in matches, I maybe could have, but I didn't want to push my luck. I feel like I really learned a lot and gave myself plenty of material for studying and growth for the future. Because ultimately, a loss is just an opportunity to grow and to really get back up and try again with the knowledge of the failure. And with many more grand challenges on the horizon, there will be ample opportunities to do so.